All right, we are live. Let's go ahead and give a couple more moments for things to catch up here. I'll be right back. This is Shill Scanner, full red pill. Live notifications just went out, and we're testing out the backup computer, which I reconfigured with an alternative to OBS.
Full red pillar, get the fuck out. Rich one, motherfuckers, roll out. Keep your pics up so all the globies can see we're in a motherfucking Colton prison 35th degree. What the fuck is wrong with society? And why am I such an anomaly? Everybody lives in idiocracy. Force fed these deceptive theories exploiting the innocent youth. Why do we believe these lies that are presented to us as truth? Pseudoscientific nonsense. An endless universe of expanding bullshit. Other worlds don't exist. We are trapped on this plane of existence. Flat disk, gamerist, checkerboard, conductive sectors. 33 slices of the pipe within the vectors. Beehive colony, you collect the nectar. Earth's broke down, man, someone call the record. I can tell you about some things that gonna blow your mind. Everything that you've been taught throughout your life's a lie. Indoctrinated to regret your perception just to believe a school lesson so you can pass to the next one. Brainwashed so you trust the authority. They want you to think you're the minority. Don't stoke the flame superiority. They'll come to see the Fefe majority.
All right, we should be good. I think I caught disease X from my computer. I've said before that I think I'm neuralinked, that I seem to have some kind of connection where I think of something, I get an ad for it. I don't even say it, I just think it. And my computer crashes, some kind of virus, I suppose. It's refreshing on the opening screen, and then I immediately also crash. So I suspect Neuralink, and in fact, Musk just finished, I guess, putting a chip in a non-monkey. We'll see how that works out. Big news today, a few things. We want to talk about Matt Walsh, who's a major league NASA dupe. Not a shill. No, he literally doesn't know the difference between real and fake. Makes the argument that others do, the authority which they give to the screen. We also want to talk about the host of Blue's Clues who chopped off the head of his father, who was an FBI agent for 20 some years, and declared a militia call to arms to go after feds and anybody who works for the government and media. I mean, this guy is obviously one of these psyop actors. Looks kind of like James Holmes, actually. We'll talk about him. His name is Justin Moan. Happens to be 33. And let me just point this out, because I hate saying I'm right, but I often am in this regard. How many times have I said, if we want world peace, we need to go ahead and quarantine the 33-year-olds? That would have stopped the QAnon shaman from raiding the Capitol. The insurrection wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't have happened. Taylor Swift wouldn't be happening. She's another 33-year-old. And we'll also be speaking about Taylor Swift because it seems like there's some kind of drama being set up with her as well. And lately she has been compared to Princess Diana. And it's always ominous when you're compared to a dead person or someone who died under mysterious circumstances. And it got me thinking, Princess Diana, lunar months, the goddesses are all worshipped by every lunar goddess for the most part anyway. They're all associated with the 13 lunar months, the number 13, and Diana's a lunar goddess. Well, Princess Diana crashed into the 13th pillar, and there's a lot of numerology that supports the idea this was some kind of a staged ritual goddess sacrifice. And we're wondering, is there something similar being set up right now for Taylor Swift? And given the recent right-wing overreaction, they're nothing but selective outrage. So what are the right-wingers outraged about this week? Taylor Swift. It always moves from one thing to the next. They used to love her. And then I don't know what their theory is here, but the whole thing is that she's going to sway the election. And so the crazy MAGAs who are chopping off heads are probably going to be set up for something. And I could see that working. So we'll talk about this character next. Let's go ahead and just jump into this one. His name is Justin Moan, and his friend has been interviewed about this, and they said he believed in all kinds of conspiracies, that the government's putting stuff in the water. They're bugging places to listen to our conversations, and his dad was tied into it somehow. Well, yeah, his dad in the FBI would have been a target, and this was also being done as a response to Biden's open borders. So as you can see here, this character, and we've been pointing out that the Fed's art is bad. I mean, NASA, their art is bad. And we have to remember that the psychological operations are being done by the same group. It's the same departments. And so, in other words, same special effects departments. And honestly, this is one of my first clues. When I was looking at the story of Dylan Roof, I thought, the name Dylan is an obvious tie-in to Littleton. The haircut. What's with the bowl cut? And I started noticing this. I'm like Adam Lanza, this guy. And I ran it by Jim Fetzer, and I said, it looks like the NWO has the same barber for all of their psyops. Well, then I dig and I find out that all of the school shootings have the same guy making the crosses with the students' names. Think about that. I mean, you go to your child's school, there's probably a shed out back if they're going to fake a shooting there. And they already have a bunch of crosses with names on them. The same guy makes them. I call it the psyop entertainment complex. And I'm pointing out here, their art department sucks. This is, again, Justin Moan, the guy who beheaded his father, put it on YouTube. And YouTube left the video up for 6 hours. I can't get a video to stay up for 6 hours. And this guy holds a severed head and calls for a bloody revolution. Here's one of his books, America's Coming Bloody Revolution. And we've speculated that this character might even be setting up some kind of an archetype. Like, be afraid of the internet radical who writes books, or they become self-radicalized and maybe they are against media. Like, I think they're setting it up. Conspiracy theorists are terrorists. I mean, they've been making this happen for a long time, but it seems like they're going even deeper. We'll continue talking about him, and others have pointed this out as well, the severed head thing. Stu Peters said, if you're going to pull a false flag, don't buy your severed head off the internet. So there's a severed head named Adam. You can order it online. It's about $300, and it looks just like the one Justin Moan had. And if you look at it, the mouth is closed. The eyes are closed. And the reason why I think this is important is that I mentioned this after the Israel-Gaza thing. The mouths need to be wired shut. You realize the mouth would be hanging open. And so you're looking at this guy holding his father's head, and the mouth is sealed shut. It wouldn't happen. In fact, someone had asked me, I wonder if a removed head would keep the mouth shut or if it would open. Someone should look into that. And I said, by default, the eyes would be open, as would the mouth. The jaw would be slack. I did a lot of mortuary work, and in preparation of bodies for viewing, it always requires the closing of the mouth and eyes. And the mouth will hang open. I mean, the jaw doesn't have anything closing it, and you literally have to use one of those little S-shaped needles and some twine, and you sew the mouth shut. Or you can use the needle injector, which I refuse to use because it has a little bit of a splashback, where you punch these hooks into the top and lower jaw, and they have wires on them, and you wire the mouth shut. But this character, his father's severed head had a closed mouth. I think that's a little an indicator here that it was probably a hoax. Henrik Palmgren said, oh, this is Henrik. Is this from Red Ice Radio? I used to listen to them before the Trump years. They used to cover a lot of interesting content, kind of paranormal, some of it spiritual, I guess. Interesting stuff, but then they got kind of like right-wing and stuff like all other conspiracies. But Henrik Palmgren says, look, maybe it's legit, but it's hard to, by default, trust anything these days. Now, the word, it's hard to trust by default. I separate the viewing public into two categories. Well, really, I mean, it's a little more nuanced, but generally speaking, most people are trained to trust everything by default. I call them auto-believers. Most conspiracy theorists are auto-believers, and then they add additional stuff. What we do is we auto disbelieve. We call it a hoax until proven real. So auto hoaxing it, not trusting it by default. But here you have someone saying, it's hard to trust by default. Are you telling me that some of these bigger platforms, these bigger channels are starting to recognize the value in skepticism applied toward media, which has been just completely demonized for so long? All right, continuing. Beheading suspect Justin Moan held without bail. The 33-year-old Levittown man accused of beheading his father. Pennsylvania man, 33-year-old, charged with murder. Now, a few places report him as 32. Daily Beast says here, 33. QAnon believer who decapitated his dad. Showed off the federal employee's severed head in an online video. Waged an unhinged legal battle against the government. Now, this is interesting, too. So he's like a conspiracy theorist. He writes books, legal battles. I mean, a number of us here, look, I'll be honest with you. When I first saw this guy, I thought, wait, he kind of looks like a Bizarro version of me. Like Bizarro, you got Superman and then Bizarro. Yeah, this guy's like my Bizarro. And it's not a flattering comparison, but I'm just saying, if they were going to try to like pre-take someone like me down, let's make this kind of like nerdy, kind of reserved looking individual, maybe a little bit of an outsider, kind of maybe looks like he needs more sun. Like it looks like they created something and like I'm the template. I'm not kidding. That's what it looks like. I'm taking it a little personal. I mean, they've done this before. I was interviewed by Mick Media, and that's why I initially broke down the auto hoaxer, auto believer dichotomy, and they extrapolated from that I was anti authoritarian and I was scared of the world and I had to come up with conspiracies to hide the nature of things. But anyway, that video was later put on an article about a meth dealer who believed in reptoids, like reptilians. And I'm like, wait a minute here. You find this article about this methamphetamine user ranting about reptilians, and there's a video of me playing. So it looks like a subtle hit job. All right, let's see who's joined us here. If you just got here, we've been off for a couple of days. Again, computer crashed, I crashed, but we're back on. And by the way, we have an upgrade coming. We have a new computer coming in. So the backup computer that does the audio encoding for all the audio streams is going to be this computer, and the new computer is going to be the new main one. Anyway, my point of it is we're upgrading. And it makes a difference because the laptop is just inadequate. So in other words, I have the main computer where I do video, but then I have it mirrored on another one that just shoots it off the different audio platforms like Paranormal Radio, where I think we were number 8 out of 13 last year. Anyway, we're on radio.net, we're on Radio King, and TuneIn. But I want to expand also to like Live 365. There's a lot of big audiences that we're missing. And now that the hardware is upgrading, I'm going to go ahead and scale up. All right, joined by Poncho Lefty. Radio Not 31 says Taylor Swift is nothing but a Xena LeVay clone body snatcher, or whatever you want to consider her. She's real, but she's fake. Same nothing but ritualistic magic. Okay, I've seen the Xena LeVay comparisons to Taylor Swift, and I agree there's a resemblance. However, Xena LeVay later grew up, and I think she might have become like kind of a Buddhist. I gotta check. But I don't think she inherited her father's satanic church. However, there may be something to it in the archetypes. There may be. Because I was looking at a number of Twitter videos, and Taylor Swift does do a lot of witchcraft and witchy, eyes wide shut style stuff on stage. And she's referenced casting spells. And I found a number of things where she talks about the 13 thing. Synchronicities in her life with the number 13. All very significant. G33 says James Holmes' dad worked for the feds too. James Holmes' dad, I think he might have. I know he had some business dealings with Adam Lanza's dad, which is interesting. And they took their sons to the same barber. Joined by Isabel Ann, P. Trippa 103. This is where it's at. Echo Charlie says, Tim, a DJ was found decapitated in Memphis last week. Yeah, I kind of briefly saw that. I was trying to find this story, and I'm like, wait, how many people are losing their heads these days? A number of them. But I was thinking this could tie into something else as well. I need to do a little more research on it, but I think there may be some significance to Aquarius and John the Baptist and some kind of severed head theme. There may be something in the astrotheological template So we need to look into the severed head thing. Constant elevation says, Tim, whenever you try to get ahead, your channel gets severed. Oh, yeah. I almost feel like it was just too much of a coincidence for my computer and me to crash at the same time before this psyop blew up. And it's just now making the rounds. But we're very resilient, if you've noticed. And we're just getting better. Nicotrauma says Tim has cooties. I have the COVID cooties. No, I think it's disease X. You see, if neurolinking is possible, then maybe you can catch mind viruses, and maybe I caught one. But thanks to the modern miracle of Mucinex, I'm 100% functional, and I'm just keeping to myself. Elephant Tusk says, do you think MG sabotaged your computer? You know, I've had a number of computers crash, but nothing ever like this. And I could imagine him walking in here and screwing it up and leaving, sure. But I don't know. I can't rule it out. I don't want to believe in that kind of thing that makes me sound paranoid because the guy that we're talking about, this Justin Moan, he has a song about being stalked. So he's being stalked, he's litigious, he's publishing books, he's big into conspiracies. Like again, I'm saying this is some kind of a template thing. This is where it's at. Says these bigger channels are part of the machine. I auto hoax 99% of them. Oh yeah, look, we can draw a line here. If they're not willing to admit that Ashley Babbitt's not dead, they're on the other side of the screen. And we're making this distinction. And there's going to be a chasm here where if you're not going to go full auto hoax, you're going to either fall in the chasm or you're going to have to default back onto the world stage. But you're not going to sit with us, basically, because we have to maintain ideological purity as we move forward for some reasons that'll become clearer later. But you can't scale something up if it's not the minimum viable product. You have to get rid of anything extraneous, get rid of any unnecessary complications, and that's what we're doing right now. Like right now, one of the biggest traps is anti-vax and the desire to overthrow the government. You know, I get people, they say, oh yeah, we just need to organize and take out the deep state. And then you have this guy showing up, cutting off his father's head and saying, hey guys, let's do this. And I'm like, is this what you guys want? This is why I made a point to also say that the auto hoax perspective is one of pure, I would say, conscientious objection. We are the only legitimate anti-war movement. And I would actually happily debate this point. If you think you're anti-war and you're part of a controlled opposition narrative, sorry, you're actually part of the info war. And you can't be anti-war if you're not anti-info war. And ultimately, that's all there is. So we are inactivist peaceniks, and I'm experiencing peace of mind as we speak. In fact, I have inner peace. And I'm communicating with people. They're saying, you're underreacting. They're going to kill us all. And I'm like, you're overreacting. You think we're at war. You're afraid of... And check this out. This is psychological warfare. And this is how I know we're right. Think about this. You want to target a population with insecurity. Well, what is security about? Borders, defense, safety, right? Okay, right wing is being targeted with insecurity. Left wing feels totally secure in their bond with government. So they trust government for everything. You can give us an immune system. You can protect us with your weapons. We trust you. You know, and whereas the right is like, no, we don't want illegal alien invaders. We don't want extraterrestrials because they're demons. We don't want people coming into our homes. We need our guns to defend our home borders. We don't want the internal invader represented by the vax. So skin, door, border wall, and even the extraterrestrial invader. All these themes involve penetration of the borders. And the left is porous, the right is closed. And it's like this down the line. So I see this mostly as fear-based psychological operations designed to keep people in a state of insecurity and also to keep the two sides fighting each other. I mean, this is the perpetual war. Elephant Tusk says, perhaps those foreigners did the recon on you via that documentary. You know, I like that line of thinking because I thought the same thing. I was like, they recorded it back in September. Now, based on my assessment of the quality of the production, there's a lot of money going into it. They went to a lot of locations. So I don't actually expect it to come out until like the spring. I think 6 months is fair. However, it's entirely possible that this out of the blue, because look, I was actually, it was just so coincidental. Many of you here already know this. It's entirely possible that out of the blue, It wasn't just some random documentary crew that wanted to talk to me, but it could have been recon. And then, look, they're in my face for 12 hours in the office. They interview me at length and they do a full profile. I don't think that's the case, though. I have looked into them, but we'll see. It could be both. It could also be both. I thought maybe MG sent some friends. All right, let's see here. A lot of interesting people in the chat. Appreciate all your comments. Jennifer Reeve says, I like the meme that compares Taylor Swift to Napoleon Dynamite. Oh, that's a meme? Okay, did you hear Michael Aquino committed suicide in December? Oh, that's terrible. I hope not. I would like to have spoken with him. There's a couple of people I really should have reached out to, and I just didn't. Oh, yeah, he did, huh? Founder of the Temple of Set died on December 17th. Okay, well, he wrote Mind War, which is something that you should all read if you want to understand the world that we're in right now. It's not a hypothetical. A Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, U.S. Army retired founder of the Temple of Set, dies by suicide. So the Temple of Set was an offshoot from the Church of Satan. The Church of Satan was more of a atheistic group, and they did not believe that Satan was like a literal character or a person, an entity you could talk to. But the Temple of Set went deeper into like Egyptian stuff instead of the Judeo-Christian framework, and they worshipped what they consider to be like the proto-Satan, Prince of Darkness, Set. And I think if you're a fifth degree in the Temple of Set, you get called the Maga, by the way. Prominent figure in military and religious circles, Aquino's unexpected death has left many in shock. See, his proximity to the Church of Satan made him interesting, considering how that group there is so connected to so many of the psyops of the 60s, and it's just like, you have him, you have Kenneth Anger, who recently died as well. Would have been interesting individuals to communicate with, but let's see here. He was a retired U.S. Army officer who specialized in psychological warfare. He was known for his role in establishing the Temple of Set in 1975, Egyptian mythology, and left-hand path philosophy. His suicide was met with widespread disbelief. Okay, well, that's terrible. Anyway, we'll move on. Let's see here. Speaking of, this is kind of a side topic. Maybe it's okay. I have these books. I've been doing a lot of research on this stuff, and I actually read some of the literature from the Temple of Set at one point. And I came across something in the literature of chaos magic that talked about how one could transfer one's consciousness into a developing fetus and reincarnate. It sounds crazy. It's called like the red rite, but it involved some kind of timed ritualistic suicide and then the consciousness being somehow transferred. I mean, very dark stuff. Sounds like horror science fiction, but anyway. I got thinking about this because I was looking at Neuralink and Elon Musk talking about, digital immortality and becoming conscious in another body, and to me that's a quite a claim. However, it's not outside the purview of the occult. It's like there's this point we're reaching where it seems like a lot of the stuff the occultists have always written about and talked about seems to be manifesting via technology. Joined by Diana South says, hello, Raft. This is where it's at. Says, Swift and the NFL Travis Kelce, it's all connected. Kelce played an astronaut on a TV show. Ready or Not said, that would explain it even more. If Xena LeVay didn't follow her father's footsteps, I'm sure she had some type of blood rituals or skeleton key. Okay, yeah, the movie Skeleton Key actually delves into this very theme. A Skeleton Key, if you haven't seen it, it's pretty interesting. It's a horror movie. Hospice nurse working at a spooky New Orleans plantation home finds herself entangled in a mystery. And basically what happens in Skeleton Key is it's a story of these two slaves who did some kind of magic to take possession of the bodies of their masters, and that they bring in younger people every 50 years and they take over their bodies. Serial reincarnation by taking over someone else. This is where it's at. Says the DJ in Memphis is interesting stuff. Yeah, I'll look into that as well. Diana says John the Baptist had his head cut off at Herod's niece's request. He was placed on a banquet platter, a charger. Interesting. Yeah, I actually thought about this because I was like, man, I want Marcus Goldfinch's head either on a silver platter or a charger or on a stake. I like the idea of a stake. It's like a warning. Okay, let's see what else we have here. I'm running through your comments. Diana says, I wonder if extraterrestrials are the Antarcticans. Oh, yeah, I would assume that extraterrestrials either deep below our feet or way out there, but not up. Okay, let's see. Echo Charlie says, Tucker Russell Brand, MSM and MSM Plus together this week. Yeah, I listened to Tucker and Russell Brand, and Tucker Carlson is just saying, oh, the reason why they're going after him is because he speaks so much truth. And their idea of truth is like, where are the JFK files? What happened at Roswell? I mean, it is like just kindergarten level conspiracy theory conjecture. And the idea that these are somehow truth tellers and they're being suppressed because of truth telling, that's just a marketing strategy. I call it censorship theater. Elephant Tusk says, I want to ask you about your thoughts on the military hospital ships Comfort and Mercy. Yeah, I remember those. And the QAnoner said, oh yeah, that's where all the deep state members are, and they're chained to beds, and they're going to be killed in Gitmo. I kind of thought it was all just theater. Like, look, there's so many bodies that we need these big ships out there for more bodies. But it was just probably full of dancing nurses. All right, continuing. We barely scratched the surface here. We're talking about Justin Moan, 33, held his father's head up on a YouTube video, calling him a traitor, and he called for militias to kill federal officials on site. Drudge Report describes him as a MAGA maniac, beheads his dad live on TV. Again, there's a number of boxes here he checks off that seem like there's a template they're creating here. Conspiracy theorist online. There's something here I think that they're trying to create a fear in the public, obviously. Now, this is a text message I got from Trump. Less than 48 hours until all hell breaks loose. Don't let them take a victory lap. So that would be tomorrow, February the 1st. So just a heads up. Again, breaking, 33-year-old Pennsylvania man beheads his father. Again, I think I've made the case. Let's go ahead and quarantine the 33-year-olds and just have some peace. Okay, here's a provocation. Somebody took the Jackie Robinson statue from Kansas Park and burned it. You know, Mr. 42, the first black to cross the MLB color line, played by Chadwick Boseman, who was died at 42, played the Black Panther. But the symbolism of this is pretty blatant. And when I saw this, I thought, this is kind of like BLM taking down statues that would be meaningful to right wingers like Confederate generals. But here you have Lauren Witzke mocking this. Now, Lauren Witzke, again, we've talked about her before. I believe she's Stu Peters' manager. She's just kind of a right-wing bomb thrower, always just says racist stuff to get reactions on Twitter. She says, oh no, did somebody tear down and vandalize your historic statue? Tragic. Obviously being sarcastic. What did Jackie Robinson ever do to her? Like, he's an important historic figure. The idea that he was some kind of I don't know what the beef is other than this is a dig at BLM. Not surprising that she would take that. Oh, by the way, Taylor Swift's new album is called Red. No, maybe that's not a new one. It says she had an album called Red, and there are two red teams playing in the Super Bowl. I'm just pointing this out. We're looking for little bits of clues because last year, if you recall, Rihanna was dressed all up in red, and it was all about the Super Bowl. We had all this like red stuff, heart stuff, Damar Hamlin. So we're not really sure where it's all going, but there's something up. Like this. Former Trump official critically wounded by gunmen in deadly DC carjacking spree. This was today, or happened last night. So in the headline, you have Trump critically wounded, gunman, DC. So there's just, to me, like intimations, foreshadowing. Now look at Laura Loomer's tap. And I'm pointing this one out because, if you recall, Laura Loomer was breaking down the symbolism of the Atlantic piece that had the bullet hole and the $47. And she said, this is a threat to Trump. And we thought, why is Laura Loomer doing symbolic or symbolism deconstruction. This is like out of her purview. She's supposed to be a total world stager. It didn't seem like it was anything other than the MSM co-opting any narrative about Trump's impending head wound psyop. But look at her take on Justin Moan. She says, man beheads his federal employee father and posts a video on YouTube calling for a revolution against the Biden regime and to fight the army of illegal immigrants. Biden is making people snap. So her assumption, of course, is that it happened, and you can blame Biden for his actions. Or his actions are even somewhat justified. Kind of a strange take. Isabel Ann says tomorrow is Imbolc 2-1. Yes, Imbolc, the is that Gaelic? It means like in milk. Then you have Candlemas, the Catholic version of it. But yeah, this is the sun god ceremony, the weaning of the sun god. And this is why you had Janet Jackson's breast exposed with the solar looking piercings, like a sun with a face on it, on her nipple. It was all about the weaning of the sun god. And it has to do with where the sun is climbed by this time of the year, because it was just born on Christmas, of course. And I think the Super Bowl is always used to celebrate Imbolc. Like, I happen to think that they use these major events for celebrating their pagan calendar. In fact, that's what I think last year was with Rihanna. It was the, uh, I guess, Super Bowl Mystery Babylon fertility rite. Commenter says, what do you suppose Trump was visiting the D.C. headquarters of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters today? Oh, I didn't catch that. He's always making these weird trips. Like, he goes to Firehouse number 17 with a bunch of pizza. And the QAnoners go nuts. Like, oh, 17 and pizza. This is where it's at. Says, what do you make of Sean Combs? Cases in Kanye. They say his wife is a slave. Oh, yeah, well, I was looking at Ye's Instagram, and he has his wife. Her name is Bianca. Is it since Bianca Censori or I Censor? Because she was put there to censor him, I think. Because he's been quiet. He was making a lot of noise. He was destroying his entire company, his wealth, and everything just by running his mouth. And then he meets this architect, Bianca Censori, and he's quiet. It's like I censor. Like it's some kind of NWO android. Like, yeah, go send him an ice sensor, the newest model. But he has her dressed up like a gimp, like the gimp mask and a thong, and he just has her standing around the house like an object. And so people have suggested that she's a slave. But he was confronted by a paparazzi, and he got really mad about the insinuation. I don't think there's anything weird about it. He's got a lot of time and money, and it's just showing off. Probably there to make to make his ex jealous. And I think Kim Kardashian and him have recently gone out to dinner, so I think maybe it worked. Okay, Trump is with the Teamsters today. G33 says, I'm a Teamster. He's just politicking. This is where it's at. Says, Elon says X is getting more content moderators because of Taylor Swift's AI-generated porn. Yeah, I knew there was going to be an agenda to this. That they're going to say there's some things that we have to do. This is what Disease X is. Disease X is going to be we have to censor the cyberspace. The same way we lock down and we wear masks, we have to quarantine the internet. People have to mind mask themselves. And we have to be protected because these things are, of course, contagious and destructive. And in this example, the AI-generated Taylor Swift stuff gives them a pretext. Because who's going to say, no, let's not change the rules for that. And then this guy's severed head video was on YouTube for 6 hours. Another problem. Let's see here. This is where it's at. It says, Kels is going to propose to Taylor after the game. She's going to get a ring. Weird symbolism. Well, again, she's 33, and they're all suspect at that age. This is where it's at. It says, Kanye is censoring her. Ironically, she's not allowed on social media per reports. Well, it's hard to know where the real Ye begins and the act ends, because I think he's acting out the role from Black Skinhead, the track from 2013 about a character who's mentally devolving. And I think there's a trajectory to his character, the fall of Kanye West, and it corresponds to the fall of the West. And the Kardashians are emblematic of, I guess, Western decadence at its peak, and it needs to be dragged down for its own good. So I think there might be some deeper symbolism here. I mean, they don't let anything. I mean, honestly, I don't think anything would be leaked out if they didn't want it to be. And they're all a bunch of weirdos anyway. I mean, Kim Kardashian is still standing behind Beyonce after the kitty porn adjacent weird bondage stuff with the teddy bears and the just really bizarre stuff with that fashion company. Jennifer Reeve says some states are trying to pass laws that people have to show ID for adult sites. Well, wasn't I think it was Nikki Haley was saying nobody should be allowed to go online unless they're using their real name, which is a real dumb idea. But more and more, I'm seeing figures on the right agreeing with figures on the left with their pretext for censorship. Oh, we got to censor because Discord is causing shooters to go hit up malls and supermarkets. And then you have Jack Postbeck. Well, look, these two shooters were radicalized on Reddit, which is a left-wing site. This is where it's at. It says Usher is going to be at the Super Bowl halftime show. Yeah, there's some symbolism there as well with the name Usher. We'll probably get into that. Again, Jackie Robinson statue stolen from Kansas Park and found burned in a trash. That's got to mean something. Justin Moan had published a lot of stuff on Amazon. I tried to get some of his music. I knew it would be cringe, but I wasn't able to get my hands on it. We'll see if we can find some. But he claims that he's the commander of a national network of militias. Moan's Militias, MM. And some have said this is very suspicious because right now, Congress is pushing a Senate bill, 3589, which has been described as an anti-militia bill. So an anti-militia bill, just as this militia guy comes out. Jay Diggs found this connection. John Hamm plays a sheriff. We're talking about a TV show called, I believe this is, let's see if I can find it. We found something in TV, Fargo. Yeah, Fargo, Season 5, Episode 9 and 10. John Hamm, county sheriff, gets into a showdown with the FBI. Makes a call to arms on his streaming page to all patriots. This aired just a couple weeks ago. So anti-Fed call to arms. He says, Mayday, code 1010, all patriots respond. I have a military ambush inbound. This is America's sheriff issuing a call to arms. Fascinating. We'll show these godless Huns how patriots dies singing. That's from Fargo. And again, a couple weeks ago. And how many times have we seen this? Like, do you remember the Uvalde psyop? The Uvalde psyop where, side note, Alex Stein went over there and cried for the fake dead kids. Just worth pointing out who the crisis actors are. I mean, he went total Robbie Parker at that shooting in Perry, Iowa. Anyway, at the Uvalde shooting, you had the story of all these police who didn't go in to stop the shooter. And then some off-duty Border Patrol guy had to grab a shotgun while he was getting a haircut. He stopped his haircut, grabbed a shotgun, and he went and solved the problem. Well, there's a season finale of FBI that they pulled because the storyline was the same as Uvalde. There was a mass shooting, they didn't have a warrant, but some FBI agent said, screw it, I'm just going to do something, and he stops it. Just a tie-in. But anyway, Fargo predicted this event, not surprising at all. Here we go. Roy's militia and the FBI have a war breaking out. As Roy tries to stay out of the FBI agent's line of sight, he bumps into his father-in-law. Okay, now think about this. The guy kills his father. Roy's father-in-law questions his authority. Eventually, Roy's had enough of his father-in-law's insolence and coldly kills him by slitting his throat. Roy's father-in-law is the first major character to die in this battle, but not the last. So this guy's kicking off a militia revolution, a bloody revolution in America, and he kills his father, who is, an FBI agent, and then you have this fascinating tie-in there. That's funny. Tim and Vic says, I thought Justin Moan looked kind of like you. Look, I said it myself. I was hanging out with some friends, and I'm like, I was like, my jaw kind of dropped. I was like, oh no. This guy just chopped off his father's head and he put it online. He looks just like me. And they thought I was crazy. And he doesn't look just like me, but he looks like a bizarro version of me. And it's not just that. There's like 10 or 15 boxes that we check. Like, we're both involved in litigation. I'm suing Google. He was suing the government. Publishing books. Very online, very conspiracy theory. I mean, all kinds of boxes being checked. And I thought this has got to be some kind of smear against me in advance, or it's designed off of me. And look, you're like Tim and Vic. You're not the first person to say that. Like 5 people have said to me, "Hey, this guy kind of looks like you." I mean, he kind of looks like the Blues Clues guy too. Yeah, I've got disease X, but it's all good. I'm quarantined. I expect it'll go. It'll be gone by tomorrow, I think. MAGA goes to war on Swift. Look at this Drudge headline. MAGA goes to war on Swift. And then adjacent to this, MAGA madness chops off the head of his father. And again, the MAGA belief here is that she is going to cause a victory. Here, let me go and play this. This is Jack Posobiec. Jack Pizzagate, Jack Poe, Jack Bumble, Jack POS. Anyway, this is Jack Posobiec, a rabble rouser. He's definitely an agitator, provocateur.
Watching back.
Now, this is his description of Taylor Swift, and this is some kind of a psyop.
TV, when we do the podcast, when we do War Room, when we do human events, right? That's who we got. And so that's who we have to go to war with. And so when it comes to winning these elections, we have to understand the new game. And when I talk about Taylor Swift, I say it's so obvious to me. She's the perfect vehicle to go to those low propensity white liberal women to say, I need you to come out. I need you to come out for what? What'll be the issue? It'll be abortion, right? Abortion will be the issue. You need to come out. You need to get out on here. And we can all see it. I'm sorry? I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But unfortunately, I have to live in the world of what's, what potential threats could be out there. And the indicators and warnings right now are going off the charts. That of course, she, came out as a Democrat in 2020.
So he's talking about major threats at the Restoring National Confidence Summit. And this is Turning Point Action, which I think connects to Turner Diaries. And on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Turning Point came out against MLK. They said the Civil Rights Act was wrong, went in the wrong direction. So MAGA to them means Make America Great Again, means make America back to what it was before the Civil Rights Act was passed. Which, whatever you think about the nuance of it on principle or whatever, maybe you have some principled arguments against certain aspects of it. Maybe you think the free market corrects these things naturally. But whatever the case, you can't help but sound extremist and racist when you say, oh, let's do away with civil rights. It's just bad optics. And when I saw Charlie Kirk doing that, I thought, okay, this is intentional. Provocation. So here we have, and then of course the statue thing. Again, Jack Posobiec called up the guy that took down the Temple of Satan's statue, and he had him speak at Turning Point. And so now they don't even believe in the First Amendment, freedom of expression, freedom of religion. And now they're even kind of turning their back on freedom of speech with regard to internet speech, which might get them to compromise on the Second Amendment. But here he is talking about the threat represented by Taylor Swift. And Jack Posobiec, again, is the guy that streamed live in Comet Pizza. And you could consider him to be one of the top alt-right influencers, which is one of the reasons why I focus on his commentary.
She attacked Marsha Blackburn in 2018. She's driven out voters using her social media presence in the past, and so it really seems like all the indicators are going. And then, of course, take my word for it. The New York Times has already said that the Biden administration is working on what they call the Taylor strategy. So again, it's not about her as a person; it's about the machine that's around her and how they can use the power of her celebrity. And people have said, "Well, wait a minute, Jack."
So there you go. They're in a panic about her. So if some crazy person like this Justin Moan think, Taylor Swift is going to cause us to lose, well, then I think maybe it gives them all the pretext they need to run some kind of a psyop that results in, well, I don't know what. Listen to this one. This is Vivek Ramaswamy claims Super Bowl would be rigged for Chiefs to set the stage for Taylor Swift's Biden endorsement. Super Bowl's tied into this story now, which is coming up on the 11th. Taylor Swift's going to be there. This is all adding up to something, as we'll see. Tim Pool had said, "How old were you when you learned the NFL was fake?" Now, Tim Pool is fake. If he wasn't, he would contact Jake Gibson. Jake the a-hole, who has masterfully deconstructed the NFL psyop time after time. And, if you're married to the sports or you're still attached to it, yeah, I understand athletics. I understand sports and why people like it and the escapism. But it's a huge blind spot for a lot of truthers to think that it's not touched by the psyop entertainment complex, that it's not entirely compromised. Which doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. I love movies. I go to movies all the time. I watch everything on Netflix. I like writing, I like the cinematography, I like the acting, even though I know it's propaganda and that the entertainment is a side effect. I'm cognizant of this. But anyway, here he is calling out NFL fake, but it's a very meaningless thing when he says it because there's no bigger context. But let me play this clip. This is William Cooper talking about the bread and circuses.
I was listening to the radio the other day. They just contracted to pay one player on one team $6 million a year. Can you believe this?
And why is that?
It's the Roman circus. What does the emperor do when the people become restive, and when the people are asking questions, and when the people don't like the policies of the emperor? He sends them to the circus. He creates a circus. He builds a giant coliseum. And he begins to throw the Christians to the lions. And he has great chariot races and football games.
Now, really quick, he's talking about bread and circuses, and Zucker was out today, Zuckerborg. He was apologizing to the victims of, I guess, sex trafficking on Facebook or something. But Zuckerberg is obsessed with Augustus Caesar, and that's why he has that highly cropped bowl cut. It's the high cut bangs. He's got this haircut that is based on someone he admires. And I think it's interesting that he's obsessed with Augustus Caesar and stuff, considering that Facebook is like the Colosseum. And how do you gauge the will of the mob? Its mood. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Likes and dislikes. And I think in many ways, social media is the circus. But this is from How the Elite Have Controlled Men Since 200 BC. Little talk here, an interview. William Cooper, author of Behold a Pale Horse.
And basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world, so that they don't have the time to learn what the truth is, so they don't ever get smart enough to learn how they're being manipulated, so they don't ever question the emperor.
Anyway, some interesting points there. All right, continuing. Conservative influencer thinks women shouldn't be allowed to vote. Oh, this is Elijah Schaefer. I think we called him Elijah Schaefer because in the summer of 2020, when he was out live streaming in Kenosha and other places,
I personally think that
he kept working his jaw like someone who might have been using some, I don't know, stimulants.
women shouldn't have the right to vote. I don't think they should have been voting. I don't think that's a helpful thing in society. And I think the men act like women now, the women act like men. We live in an egalitarian society. Men are not stepping up as men, women are not acting as women, and we live in a very confused society because people have denied their very nature. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying women are dumb or anything like that. I just mean I could say that, but I'm not. I'm just saying, like, realistically speaking, everyone's kind of a retard today. And it's
Now, I'm only bringing this up because this is part of this bigger trend that I've been pointing out with the MAGA ban in MAGAstan and how the right-wing conservatives are adopting MAGA values. They're all complaining about women not covering their hair when they go to the gyms. Like, they're basically the American Taliban. Instead of being radicalized by the Quran, it's by QAnon. The jihadi suicide bombers are now incels, but they have the same beef. But instead of the great Satan and little Satan, America and Israel, they're against the deep state, which is kind of the same thing. Okay, moving on. Neuralink. Transferring consciousness. We may get into this later. I want to stick with this thing that has been developing, however, with Taylor Swift. And Matt Walsh has been getting a lot of crap, deservedly, because he has suggested that the moon landing hoax, quote, is absurd and baseless. And of all the evidence, it's made up or wildly misconstrued. He went on to say that this is an effort to undermine America's greatest achievements. And he's attempting to debunk the moon landing hoax theories. Now, this is wrong-headed in a few different ways, which I discussed in a recent blog. No secrets are too big to keep. And this was actually a chapter from Secret Religion of the Elite. No secrets are too big to keep. And this is a very common, like I've even heard, like a long time ago on Fox, Bill O'Reilly said, do you know how many people would have to be in on it for it to be a conspiracy? It's just such a naive take. It's beneath him. But I don't think that he is aware of how fake it is. He is a dupe. Matt Walsh is a NASA dupe. Not only is he a NASA dupe, but I mean, he's a shill in a number of areas, but he's totally fooled, and his argument here is pretty weak. And he's getting a lot of flack for it, again, very much deservedly. But he's reacting to a survey that said that 40% of the population, that 40% out there, aren't convinced that they weren't faked. Like, they're open to the possibility that it was a hoax. And I think like 8 or 10% think it was a hoax, just unequivocally. And what's the difference between the people who believe it's a hoax and those who don't? Research. That's it. That's all. But let me play a few clips from Daily Wire's Matt Walsh.
We're going to cancel moon landing deniers, those who subscribe to the theory that the moon landing was fake. I am finally addressing this subject on the show because I was provoked, and it's very easy to do, baited into this conversation over the weekend. I happened to mention on Twitter that I watched and very much enjoyed, for the second time, the movie First Man, which is actually, we watched it with the older kids who really liked it as well. The excellent biopic about Neil Armstrong starring Ryan Gosling. And I wasn't trying to start a fight, actually. I liked the movie, and I just wanted to say that. But this brought out the moon landing deniers, perhaps predictably, and I responded to one of them saying simply that I hate the moon landing conspiracy theory because it's not only baseless, but it also seeks to undermine the greatest achievement in American history.
There you go. This national achievement. And then his other argument is that Russia would have called us out as hoaxing it if it was a hoax. So he pre-rules out the possibility that this is a global hoax played by global elites against the masses globally, to use their terms. And that's the only logical conclusion. Look, there's an international space station. The idea that one group would have faked a significant part of the program and they build upon that. I mean, it's a house of cards. They build upon this miracle. Assuming this happened and this is real, everything else builds on it. And so my point of it is, the idea that the moon landing hoax would have been done to have tricked the Russians doesn't quite work. It's a bad explanation. Some accept it. They'll say, well, they had to trick the Russians. They had to win the space race. And it promotes this illusion that there's still kind of a contention between the two. And that's what they're hiding. They're hiding the uniform, monolithic nature of the conspiracy. And he's too low level to actually have this perspective. And what's more, this is not a collective achievement. You didn't go to the moon. They did, supposedly. Your team didn't win the Super Bowl last year. You were on the couch. I mean, your team might have won, but you didn't win. People say, oh, we won. Well, your team won. You didn't. And there's this idea of like attaching yourself to the achievement. And I think that the moon landing versus the Russians is just like a propaganda thing, a propaganda victory. It's an emotional attachment he has to a narrative. But it's pretty insane. Now, listen to this. Elon Musk said, it's insane how many people have asked me if the moon landings are fake. They are indeed obviously real. Indeed, as real as the tragic fact that we haven't been back there for half a century. We should have built a permanent base on the moon and Mars by now. See, they live in a fictional universe where Elon Musk is not an actor. I mean, you could say liar, but it doesn't do it justice. It's like, oh, it's a con man tricking a lot of people. No, it's not like that. He's part of an entire production company, a crew, the PSYOP Entertainment Complex. It's vast. It's a vast conspiracy to brainwash billions, and he's a player in it. He's an actor, and they live in a fictional universe. Matt Walsh lives in this fictional universe, and you could be as popular as him. You could be a big influencer in media and still not know what's real and fake. He's in the box. Not an enviable position. But let's address this thing about no secrets too big to keep. Starting with this. Let's just, at the very beginning, the astronauts have all been members of Masonic lodges. So, if you know anything about that, you're talking about a system of security clearances, compartmentalized knowledge, and non-disclosure agreements in the form of blood oaths. So the idea that everybody involved would know, it's like you got 400,000 people involved in the moon landing. If you look at all the contractors, everybody at NASA, and everybody involved in some indirect way. But when it comes down to it, how many people would have to be there at the actual location where they're faking it? You can look at examples of movies, like very large movie productions. We have a lot of people in a lot of cities doing a lot of work, but only the director and the lead cast members know, how it's going to end. The people who are doing the editing. So there's levels of security clearance that they're not taking into consideration. If you've served in the military, you know that you are not privy to information if you don't have the right security clearances. So he's not even including in his assessment the existence of security clearances. So again, just a naive take, hardly worth listening to his take here, but he's getting a lot of crap for it. And most of his takedowns of moon landing hoaxes are based on a straw man representation of how people debunk moon landings. And there are a lot of bad arguments, but this doesn't even get close. This is not a debunk. And beside, like this is one of the examples of what I describe as selective skepticism. If you're only skeptical of the people questioning the official story, you're not a real skeptic. You're being a skeptic of the skeptics, or rather, you're questioning the skeptics, meaning you're unskeptically defending orthodoxies.
White House, the Pentagon, and Hollywood were so brilliant and devious that they tricked even the Soviet spies who were monitoring them, along with every other global space agency, or these other agencies are in on it.
Okay, and one other argument, this is really dumb, is that it would have been easier to have gone to the moon than to have faked it, because the special effects would have been that challenging. You believe this crap? I just watched ISS to assess the special effects, and I was like, watch the hair. Because if that hair is floating around, it's going to look realer than the ISS in real life, where the hair is just hair sprayed, and it's sticking straight up. Well, in the movie, the hair was all slicked back. You didn't have any loose hair. It's a special effects thing. And one other thing, he doesn't include in his assessment special effects, movie effects, because they assume it's all science and it's all just legit. Well, guess what? If we're positing that this is a hoax, then we are positing the inclusion of the tools, techniques used to conduct a hoax, including movie magic. So again, Matt Walsh, his head is in the box, doesn't have a clue. Now, going on, secrets are protected by this compartmentalized and hierarchical pyramid structure that can only be understood in its entirety from the very top, or from the fringe, where we are. The cutting fringe gets the same perspective at those at the top of the pyramid of the lie world order. That's why they hate us. That's why we're excluded from their Truman Show. They don't want our opinions to saturate their closed environment. They don't want our mind viruses to infect their body politic, because we might cause a lot of them to exodus like we have. They don't want people putting the pieces together. So one other point here again is that discussion about the alleged lunar landings is only valid if you include the techniques of fakery and special effects. That's a starting point. And no one who ever debates the shape of the Earth professionally, Fight the Flat Earth, McToon, none of these guys ever include special effects. It's not even a consideration. So it's not even an honest discussion. Because for the moon landings to be faked, it would have to be movie magic. That's the only way it could be done. So there is no way you could have an honest discussion without positing movie magic and then comparing it and then having somebody who's an expert in video editing make a determination, which is something I'm working on getting done here with the ISS assessments. I mean, I have years of experience with video editing, so when I see a green screen glitch or an augmented virtual reality goof, I just see it for what it is. Conspiracy Kyle said, Matt Walsh went full NPC saying this about the moon landings being faked. Imagine how many people would have to be in on it. Clown face emoji. Anomaly says, I'm going to have a field day responding to Matt Walsh's moon landing video. He's a moon landing denier. Yeah, he's getting a lot of deserved blowback. Catch up on your comments. All right, let's see here. Timmy's Into the Beyond says, Tim, any insights? Yeah, on the statue, Jackie Robinson. I've been thinking about that one. I think the Jackie Robinson statue being taken down might be some kind of right-wing provocation against the left. So you're asking if it's a psyop to get people agitated? Yeah. Just like the left wing pulls down Confederate generals to piss off the right, I think that the right wing is finally striking back, and that's why you had Lauren Witzke cheering it on. Yeah, we are live, Frank Zen. We're back on. I was down, temporarily sick. I'm just about over that, and the computer is still sick, but I'm on the backup, and we're upgrading everything now. The ISS movie came out on 1/19. It was a terrible movie, by the way. And they dumbed down the special effects because they wanted to not outdo the ISS in real life. That's one of the best takeaways from it. If you watch the movie, just look how the special effects are purposefully dumbed down compared to what they do in all other science fiction. In fact, they didn't give us any views that you don't get from the ISS. Like, they were very careful in this movie. It's a garbage movie, though. I mean, it's just like, it's horror. It's not well thought out, just a bunch of stereotypes. But it came out on 1/19, which I think has more to do with it than anything. It's part of a build-up towards the fall of the Tower of Babel psyop, which we are living through. Joined by AK All Day 2323. Thanks for joining. All right, let's continue here. We've been talking about Justin Moan, who killed his father, who was an FBI agent, in a way reminiscent of an episode of Fargo, which came out a couple weeks ago, calling for a militia uprising against feds, just like the TV show Fargo. He wrote a book called America's Coming Bloody Revolution. And this is interesting because I was talking about how the MAGA ban loves the idea of severed heads, executions, tribunals. And I thought, Patriot Front was founded by a guy named Thomas Rousseau. And the name Rousseau is inseparable from the philosophy leading up to the French Revolution, which obviously, has to do with heads being chopped off. And I had a caller who said that this is what they want. That the right-wing conspiracy theorists who are full red pill want feds dead. They want Biden's regime to pay. They want closed borders because they don't want more immigrants. Like, I've heard people say they want a French Revolution. They want revenge. They want anybody who had anything to do with COVID to be hanged. So I've heard many cries for exactly what Justin Moan wants. And that's one of the reasons why I put out an article last week about the parallel media and how we are consciously, deliberately, definitively stepping outside of the info war because we don't want to be dragged in to any of their contrived conflicts. I'm not going to be honeypotted with a bunch of QAnon level types. Look, if you fall for QAnon, you're not on my team. You're actually part of the brainwashed cult. And we have to separate from that. So I'm glad that we took that point, we made that a foundational point to our think tank. In fact, that was perfectly timed. The article was Introducing the Parallel Media, an Anti-Mind War Manifesto. And in this, I made the point that the only legitimate anti-war movement is also opposed in action and in principle to the InfoWar itself, not falling for this stuff. And I'm glad we put this out there, that we are inactivist peaceniks, because again, I don't want to be dragged in with any of these people who have war in their minds, who want things to go, quote, kinetic, so they can see blood, so they can have their chance to sate their bloodthirst. Or they're just keyboard warriors. But whatever the case is, like, I'm not for violent uprisings, and I've made that very clear. Just in time, because everyone else who has signed on with this idea of let's kill the deep state, well, now you're lining up behind the Blues Clues guy and his call for a bloody revolution. And like, again, I don't want to be on that team. J. Diggs says, did Tom Cruise ever go up there? He hasn't yet. He hasn't gone up there yet, and it can't fall until he does. And again, I think Tom Cruise is playing a very significant world stage role. In fact, I was very vindicated when the movie Top Gun 2 came out, because the opening scene has him reprising the role of Yuri Gagarin's first trip to space. And it's kind of told in the subtext, but first man in space thing, because I think that he's playing the role of Major Tom from Space Oddity. I think Tom Cruise dies in space. And this was actually predicted in South Park, where he's dead on the moon next to Shamu the whale. Okay, continuing here. Yeah, supposedly killed his father. There's also indications that he ordered a $300 severed head prop called Adam and put it in a bag with some fake blood and made a YouTube video, which YouTube left up there much longer than they leave any of my videos up there. All right, let's roll on here. So again, to the commenter's point, the Jackie Robinson statue, worth paying attention to. I think that's a move that it's going to lead to something. And the fact that Lauren Witzke's all over that, hating on it, very, very telling. All right, continuing. Quarantine the 33-year-olds. Too late, but, you know. Let me play this. This is an individual who is fed up with the condensation trails. Really fed up. And he's calling this a weather war and says this is totally unnatural. And I see this all the time. And I just want to point out, I'm willing to debate the aesthetics of it. I'm willing to debate any chemtrail truther on whether or not condensation trails are ugly or beautiful. I'm willing to argue that these are beautiful. So here is a chemtrail believer really mad at these cirrus clouds, anthropogenic cirrus clouds, suggesting that these are responsible for the snow. And I want to point out that the fallacy here at work is faulty causality. He thinks because he sees the trails and the snow follows, therefore trails cause the snow. This is the same fallacy that Crow 77777 uses when he says, if there's contrails, you can boil vinegar in your yard and it will clear them. Well, yeah, you can boil vinegar in your yard and the clouds will dissipate, but they have nothing to do with one another. The same thing goes here. The fact that you have these persistent trails means the climatic conditions are conducive to it and they're at a sufficient altitude. The snow is going to happen regardless. But again, faulty causality at work here, and it makes this guy mad at the sky.
Beautiful blue sky, first time in 3 days, and check it out. X marks the spot. hey guys, this ain't clouds. This ain't storm clouds. This ain't snow clouds. This ain't even real snow. But anyway, yeah. Where you at? Are they doing the same thing to you? Guys, I don't know about you, but I'm about fed up with this right.
He's fed up with it. This is why I call them chemtrail Gretas. Like you're mad. You're mad about condensation trails that persist because they're at such a high altitude. Like really, that's what they're mad about. And I actually saw something I want to order. There's a company producing bottled chemtrails. It's a bottled water company, and they actually have a label on it, and it says, yeah, it's actually bottled chemtrails. All right, continuing here. There was a story about a week and a half ago where Donald Trump's hands were pointed out. His right hand had like red spots on it, like a stigmata. I think James Carville said it was syphilis. But anyway, they caught him off guard, and they said, hey, Trump, what were the red marks on your hands? And listen to his response.
My hand?
Yeah, remember what happened the other day?
What was wrong with it?
You didn't see the photos coming out of Trump Tower?
No.
There was, okay.
What was wrong with it?
The other one, yeah. Okay. You don't want to tell us what happened with the hand?
Nothing. Maybe it's AI.
Okay, nothing. Maybe it's AI. Which could be. It could be. He had these red splotches on his hand. He claims he doesn't know. Maybe it was AI. All right, continuing. Son in custody after posting sick video with father's severed head. Apparently he was smirking. We get that a lot. And smirking means crazy, insane. We're never going to hear from him. Follow-up from Leave the World Behind, predictive programming. Chinese hackers are ready to wreak havoc on U.S. infrastructure, FBI director warns. Leave the World Behind, anagram for Behold the End War Live, by the way, was all about our cyber infrastructure being taken out by someone somewhere, and we go into civil war as a result. So that's about to happen. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Commenter says, we don't want another French Revolution. Well, you speak for yourself. The QAnoners do. They want it. And I don't let them get a pass on this. They want to pretend like they're new age and they just want everybody to have free money and peace and a great awakening. But no, they want all the Democrats to be brutally murdered on TV. In fact, I was talking about this last week. There's this scene from the Quran about the believers in paradise observing their enemies suffering in hell. And I thought, that has a correlation here with this QAnon murder fantasy thing. Duper's Delight? I don't know if it's Duper's Delight so much as like Nick Cruz. It's an archetype.
New Ko-fi shop sale from Frank.
Hey, appreciate the support there, Frank. Oh, by the way, we're on the backup computer, and I'm using Streamlabs because the regular OBS was failing. And I hooked up the Godzilla sound effects. So if you super chat, it reads the super chat, and you hear Godzilla, which is a reference to the auto hoaxer raft reaching critical mass. Okay, let's continue. Fed art is just bad. We already talked about that. Again, the severed head looks exactly like this one called Adam. I don't know how they found it. Maybe they just right-clicked and Google searched the image and it brought up severed male head Adam. Who's going to spend $300 on something so grotesque? But apparently it's very easy. And this isn't inconsistent with what we've seen. You know, rubber dead kids, surgical training dummies that bleed, that you can actually operate on. They breathe, they bleed. Let's see what else we have here. A lot of people are obviously just calling this thing out as a psyop. Yeah, here it is for the chemtrail believers. Liquid chemtrails. Now it has a warning. It says it contains dihydrogen monoxide. 500 milliliters of it. So if you're willing to drink some dihydrogen monoxide, you can get some liquid chemtrails. And that's why I don't understand why they're getting mad. You're getting mad at ice crystals in the sky. It's actually quite beautiful if you think about it. It's like, look, humans can fly. It's an indication of progress, if anything. It's like, look, some people have nothing better to do with their time than go 20,000 feet up and then zip on over to some other city. Like, I don't see anything wrong with it. I'm not mad at anthropogenic cirrus clouds. Yeah, Frank Zen, that was you. Oh, you just bought the book. Awesome. Autohoaxology 101 is available right now as a ebook. I'm ordering hardbacks, and I'm actually updating the glossary, and I'm going to have it released as a paperback so I can kick off this book tour. I don't want to wait any longer. It's delayed a month because it's too expensive to do it hardback at this time, but I can make it work. If I do paperback, I can get them at $2 a copy or something, $2.50. So I'm working on Autohoaxology 101 paperback and kicking off a book tour within the next couple of weeks, starting here. And by book tour, I mean I'll do a live book reading with an invited audience, specific guests, and we'll have something of a discussion slash debate using Autohoaxology 101's methodology as far as how I'm deconstructing or challenging certain things. For example, is the space station fakeable? We'll bring up the fakeability question. And I need to get some computer animation specialists to do a side-by-side with me and tell me that they can tell that this is real versus this. And you'll see. You'll see. It's going to be fascinating, I think, because I think you can have a professional level of understanding about special effects, but then if you're shown something from an authority, you might not question it. Because I remember seeing a large screen video of the ISS traveling over the Earth at night, and it didn't send off any kind of red flags to me. I didn't think it was fake. And yet, I was already immersed in Final Cut Pro. I was doing animation, editing, and I should have seen through it, but I didn't. So what happened? The authority of the screen. I had this sense that the screen overrid my perception. It's the digital veil. I was tricked. And I would point out, and this is my thinking here, is that you could have someone who's a professional video editor who will say, oh, that looks like crap, fire that person. But then if you tell them it comes from NASA, they'll do a 180 and say, actually, no, I'm wrong. They're right. You'll see. And it's about, again, the authority of the screen. All right, continuing. Yeah, James O'Keefe is a cosplay journalist. He put out this video last night and he said, I'm not going to kill myself. I'm going to release a video. It's very dangerous. And this is just low effort. I don't know why anybody takes this guy seriously. He's never exposed a crisis actor. He's a world stage fake journalist. Again, it's all cosplay. So he puts on these Clark Kent glasses and he says, breaking. Top White House cyber official tells O'Keefe in disguise. They can't say it publicly, but the White House wants to replace Kamala and Biden is slowing down. Oh, so you had to do undercover hidden camera journalism in disguise to find out that Biden is slowing down and nobody likes Kamala? Again, this is James O'Keefe, formerly of Project Veritas and now O'Keefe Media Group. He makes these dance videos and he does these stings. Never brings anything up worth looking at. Again, cosplay journalism, it's pathetic. He's lazy. Here's a post from 777 is 666 on Twitter. He says, notice the X. The two teams played in Super Bowl. Oh yeah, that's right. On the Super Bowl 2020, the same teams played, Kansas City and San Francisco. And on this image, it has an X between them. February 11th, 2024. A lot of eyes are on this Super Bowl. It has some kind of ominous build up. A lot of nuke stuff, Fallout stuff, a lot of Trump stuff, and now Taylor Swift So I'm not sure where it's going, but it's looking like something's going to happen at the Super Bowl. We always have that expectation, but this time, and there always is something. It's generally the halftime ritual, some kind of occult theatrics, but there does seem to be something building up. Synchromorphia said, tickets are difficult to come by. Maybe it's been sold out and filled with crisis actors on a closed set. Taylor Swift will be there apparently and maybe sacrificed. Kevin Mooring says, if anything happens to Tay Tay, OMG. But this is where it gets interesting. He says, maybe Swift will be the new Lady Di martyr. They've been hyping the shit out of her lately. She finally found, quote, true love with Kels, only to find death, like Diana and Dottie. They tragically died together is the story. And then Copacetic points out, the governor of Nevada was the Las Vegas sheriff in charge at the time of the Route 91 hoax. So they have their people in place. That's interesting. I remember the guy who was overseeing the Vegas shooting went over to Maui, and then you have the governor here. This is interesting. So he was the Las Vegas sheriff at the time. And that was a shooting that happened right there adjacent to where this Super Bowl is going to be. So there's something up. The psyops write themselves, says Synchromorpheus. Yeah, life follows psyops and psyops follow art. I think that's the pattern. The psyops are actually imitating the art, and then our lives imitate the psyops. And it's because they wrote our history decades ago. That's why if you're surprised, if you're shocked, or if you're triggered, you're being fooled. They already wrote this stuff. We're living a movie. In fact, you could look at it this way. News media is a reality TV show conforming to a pre-scripted history. And we're seeing this is true. The official story of 9/11 is a bunch of lies. Yet, what's in the textbooks? The official story of 9/11. Facts be damned. They never let facts get in the way of their narratives. The narratives were there in advance. It doesn't matter how poorly they execute when they actually have to perform on stage. Did Taylor Swift just channel Princess Diana during her latest outing? Princess Diana's outfit season, but Taylor's version. Taylor Swift has forged herself as a modern-day style icon as she's taken style cues from Princess Diana herself. Now that is interesting. Why are they making this association? The off-the-shoulder dress she wore on Late Night with Seth Meyers looked similar to Princess Diana's famous Revenge LBD. Again, this is weird. We're looking at fashion comparisons between Princess Diana and Taylor Swift, but this is where an objective take on the news media leads sometimes. And I do think it's leading somewhere. Portal Complex says she's also going against the music industry like Prince or MJ. Interesting. Into the Break says, what about the 3 Chiefs fans hoax sacrificed? Yeah, let's talk about this one. Loved ones of Kansas City Chiefs fans found dead. Wow, mystery. Death of 3 Chiefs fans fuels speculation. Okay, there's a story here. 3 Kansas City fans were found dead after watching a Chiefs game. So what is this story about? It's ominous for sure. This was published on January 26th. 3 men were found dead outside a Kansas City home after watching the Chiefs. It's not clear what killed them. On January 7th, a group of Kansas City Chiefs fans got together to watch the last game of the regular season. They never came home. The names, David Harrington, 37, Ricky Johnson, 38, Clayton Magini, 36. No one has been charged. Okay, there's something of a mystery here. We'll dig into it, but it seems kind of ominous. Again, with anything, I consider it to be fake until proven real. Very interesting. I kind of caught the headline. I'll dig into that. Okay, let's continuing. Continue on this list of I have a whole bunch of tweets earmarked that I wanted to get to tonight. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's IPS Insider. And I use the hearts for things that I think are worth discussing. I don't actually love the things that I'm hearting. Okay, so Chinese hackers are about to wreak havoc on our infrastructure. So again, leave the world behind. That's coming. We talked about the severed head quite a bit. No one's taking that very seriously. I mean, everyone's taking it as a psyop, but the thing is, on the left, they all assume it's real. Like this guy said, Robert Evans. Honestly, it took longer for the MAGA movement to have its first beheading than I would have guessed. Right? The usual suspects are twisting my statement that QAnon is its own thing, so I'll say it slower. QAnon, oh, this is Mike Rothschild. Mike Rothschild said there's no evidence he had links to QAnon, but he's saying it's basically how, I guess, like the Daily Beast, for example, called him a QAnon guy. Well, you don't have to have the QAnon logo, the Q. You don't have to like really be all about that movement to have the same basic outlook, which is the deep state, the Democrats, the feds are bad, and there needs to be some kind of militia overthrow. It's just a recycled narrative, and QAnon has become kind of a catch-all for conspiracies these days, politicized conspiracies. Jack Posobiec here whining that a Christian veteran was charged with a hate crime for knocking over a statue of Satan. This happened in Iowa, America's heartland. This is what our country has become. Now again, Jack Posobiec kicked off Pizzagate, and he's a big fan of the satanic panic thing. He wants to bring that back. He thinks it's a good thing. And the satanic panic is how the traditional value-minded right wing has organized their group against the other side. Like, so the left is all about the virus, the vax, and the misinformation. Like, their enemies are the spreaders of misinformation and the unvaxxed, because the virus is the new concept of sin in this new paradigm. But the traditional types like Jack Posobiec, yeah, they don't believe in that. That's why they're anti-vax. They're more worried about the archaic concept of sin, like literal Satan, literal devils and evil. And so for him, a Christian veteran knocking over a statue of Satan was a win. Again, Jack Posobiec recently did a exorcism of Dodgers Stadium because they had some satanic nuns do a performance there. But my point of it is this. The freedom of expression, freedom of religion used to be a conservative value. But now the conservatives are like, we're not allowed to have non-Christian religions. And this guy who committed the hate crime was applauded for this and invited to speak at Turning Point USA. Obviously, it was a hoax, I think. I think it was a psyop, a PR stunt. But they're triggered over Halloween decorations. Okay, continuing here. Let me play this short clip from the Benny Johnson show. Someone else. We often hear about Trump derangement syndrome. I'm seeing Taylor Swift derangement syndrome.
Is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor
Swift is not a psyop. Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Okay, well, Taylor Swift is not a psyop. That's not actually real. That's a AI altered video. But the idea that she's a psyop, it's this derangement thing that I'm seeing on the right, and the only person who's pushing back on it, weirdly, is Matt Walsh. But anybody who's not pushing back on it, anybody who's going for it, they're going to be blamed for whatever happens if they do Princess Diana her. Again, the comparisons between her and Zena LaVey and the witchcraft stuff, it's all there. Shadow of Erza points out, Taylor Swift's performance and music have sparked speculation about her involvement in witchcraft. Where you look at her stage, and yeah, it's a bunch of black robes, fire, and Black Mass type stuff. If you're just listening, it's black. It looks like the Bohemian Grove. So yeah, undeniable. Newsmax host Greg Kelly slams Taylor Swift. Again, anybody on the right, this is their current thing.
Wow, the whole world is talking about Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift. I like the song called Style. I like the song where she's complaining about her boyfriend who lied to her. I like the song where she complains about the boyfriend who dumped her. I like the song about the girlfriend who let her down on the big night.
Okay, anyway, they're all mad about Taylor Swift. They're on orders. They get told what to care about each day, I think. Jack Posobiec crying, the government has declared it's evil. No, it's illegal to hate evil. And again, they're mad because the Christian vet who beheaded a satanic statue is being charged with a hate crime. So what is Jack Posobiec actually arguing here? Is he saying that we should be able to rip down Halloween decorations? If you're a Christian and you're a patriot, tear down Halloween decorations. Protest Hot Topics. Burn Harry Potter books. Like, you see where this is going? And again, this is because the trad value right is trying to bring back the idea of sin as a way to justify segregation between left and right. You know, sin and virus, these are analogous constructs, traditional versus progressive concepts of sin. And they're both based on what? Panics. Moral panic, satanic panic, pandemic panic, which is actually a moral panic disguised as like a medical emergency. All right, more MAGA violence, says Midas Touch. Okay, breaking. Pennsylvania man beheads his father and calls for a revolution against Biden regime and an army of illegal immigrants. And look, I've heard a bunch of red pillars talking about military-age men. They're all scared about it. And I'm like, that's a hoax. I'm like, seriously asking them, 1 minute, you're worried about running out of people and running out of real men in America. Well, here you have 30 million real men coming into America. There's a solution for your depopulation, and there's a solution for the Kenification of the American male. You get some traditional types in here. Problem solved. But they're mad about it. So this Pennsylvania man, Justin Moan, calling for a revolution against the illegal immigrants. But look what Midas Touch says. This is the same rhetoric you'll find on Fox, Newsmax, and right-wing social media at Trump rallies and in the GOP-led Congress. This is a dangerous extremist cult. Are they wrong? I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. Because I know people, I speak to people who actually think that there needs to be a patriot armed resistance against illegal immigrants. It's a psychological operation again, and people are caught up in the mind war, but it's definitely the case that, like it or not, Justin Moan's actions, his ideas are actually very consistent and on brand with the right wing as it exists right now. Michael Letts says, last year Rihanna performed the halftime show pregnant. Was she pregnant with the Antichrist? The Super Bowl was on 2/12, Lincoln's birthday, and we're waiting for the head wound to the Antichrist. Interesting connections. And Dana J says, Usher will do the ushering. So again, what's going to happen at the Super Bowl? The Antichrist? Is there going to be a Princess Di-like takeout of Swift? Is Trump going to get his Alexander Soros predicted head wound? I mean, what's going to happen? Al X says, PSYOPs are not a conspiracy theory. Let me play this clip. Oh, this is a trailer for the military unit that does psychological operations. The thing is, though, the word PSYOPs, or, yeah, I mean, in general, psychological operations, we talk about them a lot. But it's been used by mainstream conspiracy theorists and even right-wing figures so much that it no longer merely pertains to hoaxes. They'll say psyop and they still include things actually happening, people really dying. So the word psyop has really been appropriated by the other side, unfortunately. And that started with Elon Musk. But this is a trailer for psychological operations units, and it shows inflatable tanks, among other things. It won't show you empty hospitals, but this is a trailer for the U.S. Army's psychological operations unit. You can just go to Go Army and look at this, but it shows you that psychological operations are probably the norm, not the exception, but they don't have the full picture. You don't really get the full picture unless you recognize that there's no meaningful separation between entertainment and news, and that history is pre-written. Okay, continuing. Hodge Twin says, we're not going to share the video of what that dude did, but conservatives do not cut their parents' heads off. This seems like a weird psyop against patriots and Trump supporters. See, there you go, a psyop, right? Well, why didn't we include the possibility here that this is a total hoax and make that emphasis? It's because that's the line they do not cross. They're not able to acknowledge these things. I think, for example, the fact that Ashley Babbitt is alive is outside of their frame of reference. They can't even contemplate that. Oh, apparently, Justin Moan declared a $1 million bounty for the killing of political officials, including FBI Director Wray and AG Garland and AG Barr. $1 million. All right, moving on. A QAnon podcaster raked in $50,000 to file an amicus brief in Trump's Colorado ballot. Her followers believe it will save the president, but it turns out she spent the money on skincare. Imagine that, another QAnon grifter. She raises $50,000 to help Donald Trump win, and she spends it on slime facials. Notorious MAGA podcaster Terps Shore Maris filed a brief with the Supreme Court. Anyway, she did this after a 48-hour fundraiser and made $56,000 in 2 days, but spent it on facials. Fascinating. Okay, continuing. Let me go through your chats here. All right, let's see. Lean Dion says, Handmaid's Tale versus Brave New World. Yeah, exactly. Like, what a choice. There's no opt-out, you'll notice. All right, continuing. Tyrone McCloskey says, Swift will do a walk-on during the halftime show. Interesting. What are they going to do? The fact that they've compared her to Princess Diana is a little troubling. My Third Eye says reality is a hoax. I would say reality is objectively real, but our internal representation of it can be skewed. You know, you have your cognitive bias, you have your selective reinterpretation, you have your own experiences, but it can also be malformed by external influences and a lack of input, as in a closed system, like if you're in a cult. And I think that the worldview that the consensus is meant to adopt is designed to keep you in line with the programming, so you're essentially a Truman in a Truman Show. Your mind is what I call a massified mind. The massified mind is like Matt Walsh, where you believe in moon landings because you saw it on TV. And your idea of skepticism is not questioning the TV, it's questioning the people that question the TV. And that's because you are on the other side of the screen when you've stepped into their worldview. There has to be a media exit. You have to recognize that the mediation process deposes your own perspective as a perceiver, as an interpreter, as an arbiter of what's real and fake. If you outsource that to Big Brother, you're going to end up as duped as anybody else. Someone tweeted this yesterday. 38 years ago, the Challenger space shuttle exploded, killing everyone on board while school children watched. Quick point here. It was not live. It wasn't broadcast live. I thought it was too, but no. They had to bring in the televisions with the tape and play it for everybody. So they traumatized children on purpose. Candace Owens doubles down on being terrified of women pilots. She's kind of a Poe, parody of extremism, the embodiment of internalized misogyny. Let's go ahead and play this.
Also, in case you missed it on Twitter, I trended for 3 days for sensibly saying that I do not want pilots in the sky that are flying planes based on DEI initiatives. Like, we just want to hire more women and more Black people, is what the United Airlines CEO said. I just don't see how any person would feel confident walking on a plane and knowing that the person was hired to fly the plane because they just wanted more female pilots.
Yeah, we're hearing a lot of this from the right against DEI, which I understand it goes against the ideas of meritocracy, but it's more right-wing talking points to pay attention to. It's probably going to tie into the Jackie Robinson statue being taken down. We're seeing a lot of blowback against from the right against the idea of the civil rights. So now the whole MAGA thing, the MAGA values, are looking at a time in America before liberals made things the way they are, the progressive. So it's really a fight between progressive utopianism and the idealized past represented by the MAGA ban. And the MAGA ban don't want women to vote. It's fascinating to watch this thing unfold because it's designed to be like this. It's designed to be two sides that can never agree, and it works perfectly. And she's a bomb thrower and a player in this. Not a coincidence that she was 33, Candace Owen, when she did the White Lives Matter with black skinhead Ye. She's obviously a provocateur. Her husband is the CEO of Parler, where much of January 6th was organized. So it's not surprising to see her making these kinds of statements, but again, it's interesting to point out the MAGA ban values. But she's definitely there to read lines that are given to her. Let's see. Lizzie Friend says, "Hope you feel better soon." He sent me a animated GIF of how to enter McAfee activation key. Oh, okay. Yeah, I believe I caught disease X from my computer. But I'm just about over it. Again, we have a few studio upgrades here I'm looking forward to. I have a webcam that I want to start incorporating more. We are going to be doing more video. We have some documentaries in progress that need to be finalized. There's just so much to do. So I want to put more and more time into this. Let's see. We talked about, we need to quarantine the 33-year-olds. A little late for that. The MAGA ban chopping off heads. Taylor Swift. What else is going on? I have a few things in my notes here. I never got around to writing a review for the ISS movie because it's that bad. But the only thing worth pointing out again is that if you watch it, notice that its special effects were intentionally calculated to not outshine the quote real ISS. Matt Walsh, NASA Dupe. It's a good question to ask yourself too whenever someone is defending the moon landings. Are they dupes or are they shills who know it's fake? And I think the majority of them are actually duped. It hasn't crossed their minds that something like that could be faked. And the argument that it would be easier to go to the moon than fake it in a movie is one of the worst arguments I've ever heard, but it happens to be very popular these days. It's like they never heard of Stanley Kubrick. 777 posted this regarding Elon Musk. The first human received an implant from Neuralink yesterday and is recovering well. Initial results show promising neuron spike detection. So that was January the 28th. Now, if you look at the dates from when he announces Neuralink until you have the... Yeah, Neuralink was founded June 21st, 2016. The first Neuralink implant, January 28th, 2024. This is exactly 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days. And he connects 777 to the Antichrist. Now, I know 666 is the number, but he has some... This is, again, a Twitter feed. 777 is 666. Where he goes into the symbolism, the numbers, and he suggests that it's just another way of occulting the obvious. For example, in some ancient languages, the 6th letter or number looked like a 7. The 7th letter or number looked like a 6. G is the 7th letter but resembles a 6. F is the 6th letter but resembles a backwards 7. Fascinating. Anyway, he's suggesting that the 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days to Neuralink could mean that Neuralink is the mark of the beast. Fascinating. G33 says, who's Matt Walsh? You know what? I envy people who have to ask that question. Who's Matt Walsh? Matt Walsh is a right-wing propagandist. And look, when I'm analyzing the world stage, I look for key individuals who are actively engaged in the narrative, who are being referred to by the media, the designated bad guys. And Walsh is one of these individuals who's representative of the MAGA ban values. In fact, he's really against what he calls dinks. Dual income, no kids. He's part of this thing about replacement theory, that we got to have more babies, we're being replaced, there's a depopulation going on. And so, again, I just bring him up because he's representative of the right-wing attitudes. And then for the left, I generally go to Daily Beast types to get their fringe. Matthew's Gotta Know says, on September the 11th, they were using Taylor Swift to program us for something. That something is this year's Super Bowl. They want everyone's eyes on that game at Black Rock. So if you look at the stadium, Allegiant Stadium, which the address is like 3333, I think the zip code is what, 89118 or something. There's all kinds of numbers around this thing. But it looks like a large eye, like the Eye of Sauron here. And they are playing inside of a big black rock. Anyway, he says, listening to Broken Simulation today, and Sam Tripoli mentioned Taylor Swift. It reminded me of something. Last week, I listened to the radio all week. Her new song played every 30 minutes. They're programming us for something through her music. Okay. Interesting. We shall see. All eyes on the Super Bowl, Allegiant Stadium, Vegas. We were already looking at Vegas because of Vegas fallout, for example. And again, I was really ignoring the Taylor Swift, Zena LeVay connections. But yeah, it's ridiculous to say it's the same person. But it may be an archetype thing. It may very well be. It's too close of a resemblance. And her incoming role at the Super Bowl, there's got to be something there. Look at the eyes, by the way. This is the eyes of John Moan. He's got some AOC type eyes. Looks like James Holmes. Like, just based on his eyes, I'm guessing we're not going to get any sort of testimony from him. He's going to be put into a padded room. The game's in Las Vegas, Nevada. Violet says it's known as the Death Star. Interesting. And again, it's proximal to where the Vegas hoax happened. So there's something potentially big there. I mean, obviously they want everybody watching it, but the idea here is, no, they want everybody watching it because they're going to do something that involves a synchronization of all mankind, some kind of a psyop. Now check this out. The 118th Congress has the bill 3589, Preventing Private Paramilitary Activity Act of 2024. So John Moan kills a federal employee. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate, under Democrats, has proposed Senate Bill 3589 to ban militias. What are the odds? And again, this was followed by, or rather preceded by, an episode of Fargo where someone kills his father-in-law and declares some kind of war on feds by militiamen. So there's that. My third eye says, I don't think I've ever heard a Taylor Swift song. You know, I actually decided to listen to some Taylor Swift today to get an idea of where it's coming from. And so I went to like Taylor Swift's greatest hits. It's like 4 hours. And I skimmed through it. And I guess I can see its appeal to the demographic it's reaching. It's just mainstream, ear candy, pop music, easy to memorize. It's probably wholesome in that sense. So there's probably a big market. It's probably safe. So I can absolutely see why it would be popular. Elephant Tusk says, downfall of the Swift banking system. Interesting. G33 says, maybe we shouldn't watch live. Well, there's a difference here, though, between what we do and what others do. The masses watch the screen, the MSM, and they think that's a window. Oh, look, I'm looking through a window and I'm seeing real events. I'm seeing reality at a distance. I watch it knowing that it's a filter. And whatever is coming through the screen should be considered edited, fakeable, until proven real, unless it's attended by a sufficient burden of proof. And so when I'm watching it, there's a level of critical skepticism there. So like I can watch a psyop and not get dragged into it. Like I watched this video where the guy chops off his father's head and he starts talking, and I was grossed out by it, and I was a little appalled that the guy kind of looks like me. But at no point did I think, oh, this really happened. Now things are going to escalate. I'm like, no, now they faked something and they're going to escalate the narrative, which is good for ratings, good for engagement, good for what we do. But no, I don't think it's a real thing. And if you do, what's your evidence? I mean, explain why the severed head's mouth was closed. Anyway, downfall of the Swift banking system. Now, this is all really interesting because we were noticing a few things in the last couple of years, like the Moonfall movie. And Moonfall, Doge to the moon, and you had all these like crypto crashes. And then we had the Black Rock and the Black Rock thing, big with 2020. But then we had the 2020, I think it was March 16th, 2020, the Black Monday market crash. And this is where it connects. Black Monday market crash 3/16/2020, 33 years after we had another Black Monday. Well, every day of the week has to do with a planetary body. Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. Those are the days of the week. So Black Monday is actually Moon Day. So Moon Day crash. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average plummeted 3,000 points on 3/16/2020. 3,000. A very 9/11-y number. And this was a result of course, the pandemic declaration of 3/11 and the state of national emergency declared on that Friday the 13th. So we had this big market crash. But again, Black Monday. So Moonfall. 33 years after a similar one. Interestingly, there was a TV series called Black Monday about the market crash of 87 that was premiering season 2 on the day of our second Black Monday. Just a coincidence. Even some of their actors said it was a, quote, eerie coincidence. But Moonfall, market crash, Black Monday, there's some kind of a connection here. And we could even correlate this, I think, with Princess Diana. And of course, Diana is like the Roman version of the Greek Artemis, I think. Isn't it just like another moon goddess reference that we've been seeing? And the Artemis rocket was the one with the crack in it. And Artemis, the archer. And we were pointing out how The cracked Artemis rocket was very reminiscent, and she's the twin of Apollo. But the cracked rocket was like a broken arrow, and we were noting that the broken arrow was actually code for a nuclear missile on the loose. So a broken arrow event would be like there's an unaccounted for nuclear weapon that's possibly going to be used against us. So we were making these connections then because at that point Putin was talking about nuking the West. The U.S. Department of Defense has recognized 32 broken arrow incidents from 1950 to 1980. Now, these are notable incidents involving thermonuclear weapons. We've had 32, so we're waiting for the 33rd. We're waiting for the 33rd broken arrow. And at the time of the Artemis launch, there was all kinds of buzz in the news about Princess Diana. And I remember then thinking about the broken pillar. Again, Princess Diana, lunar months 13, goddess number. She crashes into the 13th pillar and cracks it. So there's like this broken arrow reference. And then we have Kansas City Chiefs with the arrowhead. So there's something here, I think, the arrow, arrowhead, broken arrow, Taylor Swift, channeling Princess Diana. Something building up here in the meta script. Someone asks, what's my zodiac? I am a Scorpio. And avoid Scorpios. Not Shock says Black Sunday was a movie about a Super Bowl terrorist attack. Oh yeah, in fact, Black Sunday is featured prominently in a lot of the 11.3 Seattle nuke predictive programming. It's a story about Black September, a terror group that attempts to blow up a Goodyear blimp, hovering over the Super Bowl stadium where the president is in attendance. So stadium attendance by the president, and this kind of also references Dark Knight Rising and the football stadium being attacked, and Bane is there, and Bane is Trump. And of course you have the 322 reference, if you are familiar with that. Black Sunday, 1977 film. I know there was something else in this thing. We had looked at this thing closely. And the blimp connection here is a blimp-borne bomb, which is interesting because there was a drill done in Seattle called the Bombing of Seattle. The PBS.org did this thing on it where Husky Stadium hosted a drill for some kind of blimp-borne attacks. And Husky Stadium may be where the wave originated. You know the wave they do in stadiums? Which is also kind of interesting if you think about electromagnetic pulse. AJ206 says there's a movie from 96 or 97 called Broken Arrow with John Travolta and Christian Slater. Yes, that's right. So the Broken Arrow thing, Artemis, Diana the Archer, Diana's death, Diana being compared to Taylor Swift, Kansas City Chiefs. So if you kind of look at it from a conspiracy mind map where everything's connected perspective, yeah, it's all pretty connected. And look, we don't have long to wait. It's 11 days away. All right, let's see. We talked about the cosplay journalism of James O'Keefe. Nothing new. Arguing with Globers on Twitter, waste of time. We talked about fake severed heads. I believe we've covered most of what I want to talk about. Matt Walsh. Again, Matt Walsh, moon landing dupe, doesn't know, isn't allowed to know, and he should probably stop because he might reach some uncomfortable place. He's in a comfort zone. He's well paid to maintain a worldview. If he exits his Truman Show, he's not going to find his career very satisfying. Like, I would say that it's easier for people to not know some of these things than to have that knowledge and then lie. Like, I don't think Neil deGrasse Tyson could sell all that BS as well if he knew it was BS. I think true believers, useful stooges, make up the majority of the PSYOP entertainment complex. Very few of them are in the know. And so they're all NPCs. Now check this out. A Swiftie Super Bowl, Taylor's lucky number 13. And this is from the news. NBC did this. And let me see if I can find her talking about it. I saw this TikTok video where Taylor Swift was talking about how often the number 13 shows up. Yeah, here we go. Lucky 13, the Chiefs, 49ers, Super Bowl. Swiftie Super Bowl, this is from NBC News. Her lucky number is 13. Super Bowl LVIII 58 or 5 plus 8 is 13. February 11th, 2 plus 11 is 13. 49ers, 4 and 9, 13. So NBC Gematria. NBC is doing Gematria. Lucky 13, the Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl game is full of Taylor Swift Easter eggs. Now, there's probably another meaning to this as well. Easter is Ishtar. Easter eggs, this is another goddess reference. And the fertility rite reference we reference with the Super Bowl. This is pretty consistent. So the idea that the Super Bowl full of Taylor Swift's Easter eggs, well, last year it was the pregnant Rihanna in red. Now it's the goddess representative Taylor Swift, lucky 13. Again, lunar months, all kinds of goddess connections here. But the eggs, another goddess reference, fertility symbol. So it's full of her Easter eggs or Ishtar eggs. While most people associate the number 13 with bad luck, it's brought her good luck since she was born, December the 13th. Her first album went gold in 13 weeks. Her number one song on the Billboard Country Charts, Our Song, was featured a 13-second intro. And she says, every time I've won an award, I've been seated in the 13th seat, 13th row, 13th section, or row M, which is the 13th number. For years, she even painted the number 13 on her hand before every performance. So I think we're right here, suggesting there's a Princess Di goddess archetype connection to Taylor Swift. After the Chiefs beat the Baltimore Ravens to secure their spot at the Super Bowl, her fans turned to social media to note all the ways the big game is connected to the pop superstar and the number 13. 13th Chiefs game appearance. She's been to 12 games, so her Super Bowl appearance will be her 13th. Again, 13 is associated with the 49ers, 211, 58. Brock Purdy, the quarterback of the 49ers, wears a 13. One Sifty wrote, I couldn't script it any better. Of course, they think it's all coincidental. It's like, actually, no, this is exactly what you're looking at. You're looking at meta-scripting. So again, Taylor Swift hits the world stage in a big way at the age of 33. Here's another one. Performing at Tokyo Dome on February 10th, the day before the big game. Her flight from Tokyo to Vegas after her show is 13 hours. What are we seeing here? She says on Instagram, it's 13 days till we return Speak Now to its mother. Taylor Swift and the 13 must-see sites. Okay, there's all kinds. All roads lead to 13. I didn't know there was this much. I don't like to research on the fly, but I searched Taylor Swift 13 and it's a big deal. And again, I think this is probably a build-up towards what's about to happen at the Super Bowl. All right, so this has been great. I think we covered a lot of the stuff I wanted to catch up on. We were down for a couple of days, but we're definitely back up. I didn't think I was going to get this computer to work, but I used an alternative to the regular OBS, and this has given me no problems. We have a computer upgrade coming soon, which is going to expand my audio streaming, and I'll make links to all of those because I'm going to update the 24/7 live stream archives, and I want to reach back, like back in time, 2017, 2018, 2019. So that's something to look forward to. I want to say thanks to all of you who are here chatting and supporting this channel as usual. Something to look forward to. Any delayed book orders will be coming in. And Autohoaxology 101's book tour will kick off once I order the book in paperback, and I'm going to make it available on Amazon. Immortal AI says the halftime show usually has esoteric implications. Oh yes, and it's specifically tied in with the pagan holiday of Imbolc, which is a goddess ritual. It has to do with the weaning of the sun god, and last year it was a fertility rite. If you remember, Rihanna in red, pregnant, surrounded by men in white PPE-like outfits. Yeah, what you saw was the Super Bowl represented the chalice, the cup, the goddess, the womb. You were looking at a fertility rite where the men in white and she in red is describing in almost explicit detail, I guess you could say, the real meaning behind what the occultists call the Gnostic Catholic Mass. It's all very much typical of every one of these psyops. I mean, these Super Bowl halftime shows. And remember, it was the Super Bowl 47 in 2013 that went black for 33 minutes, went dark. And that might relate to this one, and we pointed this out before. Because now here we are, waiting for President number 47, and I think Super Bowl 47 and the half-hour blackout or the 33-minute blackout might have some kind of predictive value for what's coming. Ollie Goering says, thank you, IPS. Not Shock says, can't wait for the Swifter Bowl. You know, I did see something else. Maybe I can find it. There was a reference in the Tom Cruise movie. I think it's called, is it Elysium? There's a Tom Cruise movie where he goes down to Earth and there's a melted goalpost from like a Super Bowl arena that had been nuked. And someone had suggested there might be some indication here that this is the Last Supper, last Super Bowl. There's some kind of symbolism here. I'll see if I can find that. I remember this movie. It was a Tom Cruise movie, and he's walking across this field, and he's reminiscing about the last Super Bowl. And it was definitely a bombed-out stadium. So there is something there. And then, of course, Fallout Vegas. So there are a few things pointing at this Super Bowl in particular. And this is not even unusual. We're always looking at Super Bowls as highly suspect events because if you notice, the one thing that defines all of these psychological operations, synchronizing our attention. That's how it works. If everybody slept in on September the 11th, if nobody turned on their TVs until like the 12th, it wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have had the impact. Yeah, here it is. Michael in Truth wrote this. The last Super Bowl. Super Bowl 58 could be the last false flag they've been waiting for. The 49 on Tom Cruise's jacket, he says, down by 4. Let me play this clip here. Okay, this is from that Tom Cruise movie, Elysium, and he goes down to the surface from his spacecraft. Let's see if I can fast forward to this scene where you see a melted goalpost. There it is. So he's looking at a goalpost. And again, like all science fiction, it presumes that we eventually screw up, and so everything is always post-reset. He has the number 49 on his jacket. It says World Champions.
You know, I read about this game. It was played right here. The last Super Bowl.
Please don't tell me it was a classic.
Classic game.
The last Super Bowl. So he's reminiscing about the last Super Bowl. And it looks like a bombed out stadium. And he's got a 49 on his jacket. Very, very interesting. And Michael in Truth tweeted this mentioning the last Super Bowl. What is this? I'll have to watch this movie again. I think it's definitely post-nuke. Alright, I think I've covered everything, but since I'm here deepinmyminds.com/Infinite Plane Society, I have a few more things. We talked about Kansas City, Broken Arrow, 32 nuclear weapon accidents. We're waiting for the 33rd. Oh, by the way, I solved one of the Mandela effects. If there's anybody out there still clinging to it, I solved your Chick-fil-A thing. Because people are like, oh, Chick-fil-A used to have a K in it. No, it turns out, look at the French fry packages. The K is on the other side of the fold. So in other words, the reason that the K isn't on Chick-fil-A is because of a fold in the French fry box, not a fold in space-time. Mandela effect explained. All right, I think we've covered everything. Oh, one more thing here. Wall Street Apes played my video of the city council meeting where I talked about the space station being fake. He said, bold claim that NASA is a money laundering scam against taxpayers. And he quotes me here, imagine if the federal government gave $19.5 billion to Hollywood. We would be upset about it. But there's a growing body of evidence that the International Space Station is not in outer space, but it's being filmed in a pool down here on Earth, falsely represented. Anyway, this was uploaded by Wall Street Apes, which has given us another 532,000 hits. So this video, which was from 2017, and it was done as a test of our ability to market certain ideas, has been viewed 1.4 million times on 3 accounts in the last 30 days. Stu Peters, this account, and a couple of others. Interesting. For some reason, talking about the fake ISS without mentioning the shape of the Earth, without dragging anything else into it, does actually, I think, give us a place to begin a conversation. You know, some people will stop if you say flat. People don't want to hear it. But my angle on this thing was, you know, if we just mention the fact that it's 19.5 billion going to a Hollywood equivalent, maybe practically speaking, we could get some people to accept the argument that this might not be a good idea. Like maybe this money should go to, I don't know, the homeless or something. But 19.5 billion a year put into what? Worldview warfare. Elephant Tusk says it used to be Chick-fil-A without the K. Nope. It was the folded French fries. Anyway, this is One-Eye Jack and the Shells, Pope Elon. We'll be back tomorrow, likely earlier. Open phones as usual. Thanks for joining. And archives will be sent via email.
I mean, we're all going to die someday. And if you're going to pick some place to die, then why not Mars? Okay. You know, if we're born on Earth, why not die on Mars? Seems like maybe it'd be quite exciting. But so I think given the choice of dying on Earth or dying on Mars, I'd say, yeah, sure, I'll die on Mars.